My name's Don Whistler. I'll be the moderator. And one comment, don't ever tell Nancy that you'll volunteer for anything or you'll end up moderating a SNBI table. Today we got a pretty good board here. We got Jared Bax from Ohio. We got Matt Kurle from North Dakota. We got Jacob Armour from Minnesota. Michigan, godly. I'm sorry. And Haylye Brown from Louisiana. All right. First off, in Kansas, we're talking about the SNBI. If you don't know what that is, it's too late. If you haven't started, start. If you haven't read the SNBI, read the SNBI. If you haven't read it twice, you're probably in trouble because it's very difficult reading. We have not been able to have the federal training yet. We are signed up for November. So I guess that's the first thing. How many states have not had the training besides Kansas? Okay. If you don't know anything about the training, you should get a hold of your federal bridge engineer or Larry McDonald. Larry's the one that's going to run he's kind of scheduling these, so I'd recommend that. I've heard that they're very fast. They're very long, very intense. They start like at 8, and you don't get out of there till 5, and it's coming right at you, hard and full. Is that true? You haven't had it? None of you? That's what I've heard. It's very intense, so be prepared. And they won't let you record it. They will let you broadcast it on Teams or something like that. And that's what we're going to do because we can't get a room big enough for all our consultants. In Kansas, we're divided in. We got the state bridge system, which I handle, and we got the local system. And they use a lot of consultants, probably about 100. So it's no way we're going to get all those in one room at one time with everybody we have to have. So anyway, make a long story short, find out what you can and can't do and get going. Because if you're not going on it now, I really think you're late. We have started collecting. We have not finished one bridge, but we've collected a lot of individual data on several items. So, and the big problem for me, I think, is collecting the substructure and superstructure configurations. I think that's going to be the most difficult. And then we're probably going to look at hiring a consultant to do it because I don't think we have the people to do it. The rest of it, I think we're in pretty good shape. I mean, how many people in the room are really worried about maximum underclearance on a bridge? I mean, how many people are going to spend a lot of money on that? Anybody? That's kind of where I'm at. That's stupid. I don't understand that one. Anyway, I don't like stupid. But anyway, with that, we'll get started here. Let's see. Go ahead.
Hey everybody, my name is Jared Bax. I'm with Ohio DOT. I recently stepped into the Bridge Inspection Program Manager position, currently held by Mike Brokaw, previously held by Mike Brokaw, in May. So it's been a whirlwind of a summer, kind of taking over the SNBI transition and among other things. But where Ohio is right now, kind of echoing a lot of the things that Hooman said in his presentation. We, along with Kansas, have not actually completed one full bridge, but we have tried to start collecting, some of the new fields with SNBI. So we use Bentley, we use AASHTOWare for our collection in Ohio, and we created a form maybe about a year ago or so with about 20 to 25 of the new SNBI, the completely new SNBI fields in AASHTOWare. So we have locals and state starting to collect those. We haven't required anything, but basically we've said, hey, these are some of the the new fields. anything you input into AASHTOWare will then be easily transitioned over when we import our SNBI forms. Ohio is decentralized, so we have a lot of individual bridge owners. We have 300 plus municipalities, 88 counties, 12 ODOT districts that all own some number of bridges and are responsible for some number of bridges. So the initial focus is just on getting the news out here, like what is coming, trying to do initial training, because we have all these different cooks in the kitchen that are going to need to understand SNBI, but then also be able to add this data into our inspection software. So right off the bat, we've done 5 webinars, I think, to date that are up on our website, and we've kind of blasted out to the locals and to our districts. Like, if you can't attend these, we're still putting them. They're there as reference materials. We've done webinars on just like an intro to SNBI, the bridge rail fields, which were brand new and causing a lot of issues, a lot of confusion. The railing and the transition fields. Some updates on the components. We had already been collecting some of the new 9 through 0s, but just a brief overview of the new component ratings, and kind of how we want to rate those in Ohio. I think the guidance in the SNBI is very, very vague when it comes to major, minor deficiencies. So Ohio's always been kind of above and beyond with how we rate our components. We've always added additional guidance to what the feds have given us. So when we looked at that initial guidance, especially as it pertains to what they consider to be moderate or major deficiencies, for section loss or things of that nature, we initially thought that this, if we went by the SNBI, we'd be dropping a lot of our 6s to 5s, 5s to 4s, etc. So we like the way we're rating our bridges, so we didn't want the sky to fall if people just went straight towards SNBI component coding. So we wanted to get webinar on that. We did one on scour appraisals. We created a new form in AASHTOWare that is based off of Iowa's 3-tiered flow chart that Eric was talking about earlier, to kind of help with coding that scour vulnerability A, B, C, or D, which is live in AASHTOWare, and we're about 80-ish% done at the ODOT level. So that's about 14,000-ish bridges that we've already completed the scour vulnerability for. And then one was on load rating. So right now we're kind of in this lull where, it's out, but, like Human said, we're still waiting on our systems to kind of catch up so we can import this data. I think I was under the impression that Bentley would be doing, kind of a full upgrade of our website. But as we've went along, kind of realized they're creating SNBI forms, and then we're just importing those forms into our current version of AASHTOWare. So, a lot of the, behind the scenes work seems to be falling on the administrators rather than Bentley themselves. So that's something that I, gonna see how much they can do for us, because, we're engineers, we're not software developers. But the forms look great. The repeating field groups look great. I'm very, very happy with that. So they've imported all the SNBI fields into AASHTOWare. We have them available. So what we started just last week is starting to, kind of connect those to our ODOT fields. And so yeah, like you said, we're working on a new manual. The consultant that's helping with that has given us like a data dictionary that kind of converts our ODOT fields to the SNBI fields. So behind the scenes, we're trying to start that transition. But the biggest concerns we have is just training to all the people in the state. We have the SNBI training scheduled for December, and then also just transition of the data. So those are our 2 biggest kind of hurdles that we'll have in the next few months.
All right. If you're not familiar with the North Dakota system, we have about 4,800 structures, 1,700 on the state system, and about 3,100 on the local system. We are centralized out of Bismarck, so all the local structures are done by consultants, but all those contracts are managed by our NDDOT local government division. So we have help with consultants that are going to help us with our SNBI data collection moving forward. I think like you use SIMS in Ohio. In North Dakota, we use InspectX along with AASHTOWare BRM. So, we already have the tools to start collecting this data in forms and whatnot. We're not quite as close as Arkansas is at this point, but we have started collecting a few fields. The scour condition rating is one of them that we've been collecting already this year. Moving forward, we have identified like the fields that we need to collect in the office or the fields that we need to collect out in the field. And there's a bunch of them that we've identified that if we had the capability of, we'd be able to batch update in a system. So that's something that we're looking at right now and trying to acquire to work with our InspectX program so that we could just take a bunch of data, update it all at once. So that's kind of where we're at with that. We have a supplemental SNBI coding guide just for North Dakota that we're almost completed. We're still working on a few items that are, difficult to code. Historical bridges, went from a couple of codes, now there's many. So we're working on those types of things. I think there's a couple other things that we worked on. We're working on the border bridge agreements. I don't know how many of you out there have actually thought about that as part of the CFR, that you have to have an agreement in place with neighboring states for all of your bridges. We're getting close to doing it with Minnesota. We're almost done with it. South Dakota and Minnesota on the local sides, we got a little bit of work to do. We chose method 1 for our inspection frequencies. We do extended intervals on some of our low-risk box culverts. So we need to start collecting all the SNBI data on that in 2024. And I guess the other point of contention is the refresher training. So all of our internal people are up to date with their refresher training. And we don't have the capabilities in-house to provide like a overall refresher training, so we rely heavily on the NHI training. And as you know, a lot of those aren't being scheduled right now. So if anybody has an update on when those are actually going to start performing, please let me know. So that's kind of where we're at in North Dakota.
So my name's Jacob Armour. I'm with Michigan DOT. I'm the bridge management systems engineer, so I'm overseeing the BMS, but I partner with our statewide inspection lead, our load rating lead to kind of work through the SNBI. So we have not taken the FHWA course yet. I do plan to schedule that. We just need to look into it. Michigan is kind of set up well to transition to the SNBI because we've been collecting a lot of the component ratings that is now required. So we've historically had those, so we have a lot of Michigan fields that we'll be able to transition over. Some of the main pain points that the SNBI is causing is kind of like what Iowa and others have mentioned, which is the structure units. We have a lot of widened bridges that are differing structures, or differing materials, and so having to identify those is really digging through the plans. We also have a little bit of heartburn of trying to identify that when the part width is open. Construction's very dynamic and weather dependent, and schedules change frequently. So trying to open that line of communication with our contractors and our TSCs is really important to us. We are using a consultant contract to collect all the state managed bridges, and that data is going to be collected using the AASHTOWare SNBI collection app. We're hoping to start kicking that collection off here by the end of the year. We're currently working with Mayview to configure the app to accommodate some of the Michigan fields so we can easily crosswalk it over and get an early idea of what SNBI fields we have. We are actively working to identify what portions of our manual need to be updated. We're not planning to do many extended frequency updates. We're kind of continuing with the 24-month schedule. Michigan's, I guess, is like Iowa, where the locals inspect their own structures. So that is one challenge, with training. We've been doing a lot of reach outs to the local county associations. We have a bridge week in Michigan where we present to all the locals that want to attend. So we've been, when possible, echoing as much as we can, leveraging emails to try and get everybody alerted. In general, the SNBI, like I said, we have a lot of data coming over, but there is a significant lift on our team to identify and have to dig through the plans to capture the additional 40-some fields that are going to be required.
All right, I'll go through this by the questions that were sent to me. Have you taken the FHWA SNBI training course? We haven't. We've been in discussion with them to set up a date, but we haven't gotten a date between both of us. What do you consider to be the greatest challenge in meeting SNBI updates? Populating all the new inventory data for 13,000 existing bridges. So Louisiana, we're pretty much going to do the locals stuff for them. We do all their required inspections, so any inspection that has to have a team leader, DOTD does for locals. What procedures have you developed that have helped in proceeding forward? So the first thing we did was we sent out policy updates for changes to critical findings and 24-hour requirement of updating FHWA in certain situations. Our in-house inspectors were trained on that at our biannual inspection meeting in October of 2022. We created a spreadsheet of all SNBI data to practice the data collection when inventorying new structures. So we started using SNBI for any new structures built back since last October. Beginning in January of 2023, we started collecting the SNBI scour, channel protection, NSTM, and underwater condition ratings. This was a big one. We reorganized our program to move the load rating unit under the program manager, which I'm the program manager, to better meet the 90-day load rating requirements. We held internal meetings on policy changes and issued consultant task orders to update our bridge inspection and load rating manuals to be in compliance with SNBI. We recently changed to a new software. So starting in September of 2023, we now collect all SNBI information during the inspection. Next month, we plan to send a list of possible 48-month interval bridges to the districts to confirm that they'll move to a new frequency, but we're going to stagger. Some will stay on a 24-month, some will get moved to a 36-month, and then some to a 48-month. And then on their next, the 24 and the 36 will then get moved to 48-month after that first initial, because you don't want them all due in the same year. And then, let's see, we have a lot going on right now. The routine, we're changing the 12-month routine interval criteria to match Method 1 and 6-month criteria to match critical findings. DOTD will begin conducting the parish, that's counties in Louisiana. We'll be conducting the 12-month routine inspections, and then the local owners will still be responsible for those inspections needing a 6-month criteria. And then projected for January of 2024, we plan to have our frequency set in stone by then. The bridge design section will require the engineer of record to submit inventory SNBI data with the final plan and load rating package for all new bridges going to letting. We'll require that at like 95% final plans, and then all consultants doing load ratings or inspections of existing bridges will collect SNBI inventory data. I can't suggest best practices at this time, maybe in a year.
Well, you can see it's a pretty good size undertaking here, and especially the local side. We don't control, we're separated, and we don't control the locals. We oversee the locals. So it's going to be a big challenge because they don't have plans on probably at least 60% of their bridges. And I don't know how that's all gonna work out. I don't know. I think we're gonna be out of compliance personally on the local side. We got good people working on it, but I just don't think, I think it's just too big of a task to do in basically 2 years and then have it finalized in 4. I think we're gonna have problems. I really do. With that, I think everyone's kind of answered all my questions. Is there any other questions out there? Do you have any questions for us? Uh-oh. Oh, one other comment from me. Never change your to electronic collection at the same time you're doing SNPI. It's a tough world.
We have a question here. Is anyone using method 2 for frequencies?
So we plan to eventually, but there's no timeline on that. So we're just trying to meet the milestones that the SNBI like sets, which is the 12-month and for the method 1 stuff. So
I think it's time, just the time to compute it and everything.
Anybody that's out here, is anyone out here, any of the states out here planning to use method 2? Okay, so Louisiana is.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio, we're not using method 2 either, but I mean, coming from, that's more the NBIS, but not so much the SNBI, but at our central office, yeah, the frequencies, the qualifications are, a huge lift right now. And, on top of all the SNBI stuff, which is going to be more done at the district level through either, interns or staff or consulting firms. But, yeah, just getting a handle on, when your inspections are due and when, everyone's updated qualifications. I mean, that, outside of the SNBI is a huge change in itself.
Yeah, you consultant inspectors, the day you miss the 5-year refresher, you're no longer a team leader. Just so you know that. And state inspectors are the same way. You have to have it before 5 years. The day you're late, according to the new law, you are no longer qualified as a team leader.
So I have a question. I actually, the Northeast Bridge Partnership this morning started they had their first meeting of their inspection program managers. And in that meeting, they discussed, there's a couple of states that have developed their own training and gotten it accepted because there's so many challenges getting the training. You're required to have it, but you can't get it. Are there any of the states here or then other out here that have developed their own training that is accepted?
Yeah, so Ohio hasn't accepted, our agreement expired a few months ago, but we're in the process of re-upping it. But it's an approved alternate for the 2-week comprehensive. So we had been teaching an in-house level 1, level 2 inspection training for 30 plus years. And so a few years ago, we created an agreement between ODOT and NHI to give us to let us use the NHI materials. We had to basically take all their branding off and things of that nature. But we were allowed to start teaching that course. It was audited and approved and things of that nature. We've added a little bit of, Ohio flavor into it because most of the people that take it are our locals and, they only want to do things in Ohio. But, it technically should, transcend boundaries and it should be applicable for other states to come and take. As for the refresher, I mean, that's something that I feel like is borderline impossible. Given the new alternate training requirements, I mean, we were a state that we were teaching in-house refresher trainings for just as long a time, and so those are now kind of dead in the water. We have an annual inspectors meeting every year that we were calling refresher training. We were teaching our own one-day refreshers, whether that was for element level or section loss measurements or the things that were actually refreshing topics. I can personally say, having taken the NHI refresher, that those courses are much more refreshing than the NHI course. But so kind of what he was saying, I've had discussions with Federal Highway already with Larry and things, and I just said, hey, we have 700, 750 team leaders and program managers in our state. Like, we're not going to hit this refresher requirement. So, like, we're going to be non-compliant or do what we need to do. But, we were also operating off a grandfather clause, kind of like Iowa, and we've gotten all of those people trained for the comprehensive. So we've, gotten 160 people in the last year. So everyone's good on that, but the refresher is just something that I don't know how any other states are doing it, but the requirements of the alternate training, like, we don't have a staff to keep a course up to date like that. And I don't know how they're gonna, with having a 30-person course and they only have one that's approved, I just don't see how we're supposed to meet that requirement.
What he's saying is every class is limited to like 30, so sometimes they allow 40, but they're not very much anymore. I think they're holding it pretty hard to 30, so the refresher's getting, like I said, we have 100 consultants at least doing it, and getting them in and out and everything, it's going to be an interesting task to meet that 5-year limit.
Is there any move by NHI to offer a refresher course?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Is there any move by NHI to do the intelligent thing, and I'll say that politely maybe, and offer an online refresher course if you've already taken a refresher course or an experienced engineer, just to get this going?
I can't answer that.
I'm lobbying the group.
So Louisiana, we've always had the 5-year requirement for refresher training. So that's not a big deal to us. And our training program's pretty good about, we just use the NHI course about getting booked, and she'll book 2 a year. But during COVID, they didn't want to do any in-person. And I was like, what are you going to do? We've got people due. So you're going to do a virtual, and they didn't want to. And so I emailed my FHWA division office. I was like, well, either this training is important or it's not. And next thing I know, they scheduled 2 virtual courses for Louisiana. So go through your division office. I think if more people demand it, they'll just have to do it. So.
Good answer. I just took it 5 years, a refresher this spring at CDOT, and they said, unfortunately, it's not SNBI.
Just to make a clarification, we've required 5 years, but we've been lenient, not to the date, and it's to the date now, just so you know. It's, if you don't take it the day you're past your last time in 5 years, you're no longer a qualified team leader.
And so I'm just going to ask Haylye then, you have it. Do you have one that is now approved? Is it updated to meet the new approvals?
Never wait. We'll use NHI, so until they get one updated, I mean, I don't know how any states will meet it, because most states use their courses.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that most of you have that same question. Anybody else? Thoughts? How about the consultants? How concerned are you that you're going to have your people all trained?
We've had issues getting people to be course.
Yeah.
We've been trying for months.
We've had issues getting people signed up or registered for the 2-week course. There's just not in the offerings.
Yeah, I think
that's been-
what they're doing is rewriting everything, I think. That's what we've been told.
Yeah.
We got the same thing. We got guys waiting to take it too.
Yeah, I know the courses have been updated by Michael Baker. The NHI courses have been updated by SNBI. GPI is one of the firms that was selected to teach the courses. They have not selected, they had us put in, they selected 4 firms to do it, I think. And then they asked us all for cost proposals, and we submitted those cost proposals, and we have not heard back yet. We heard about, I think we've heard about the non-redundant tension members, NSTM. We've heard about that one. We've heard about the underwater, and I think the ancillary. But the one everybody wants, haven't heard on that one yet. And then also at the mid-year meeting for the bridge, the AASHTO Cobb's safety and evaluation, FHWA was there, and they said they did not commit to any time frame. They were pushed pretty hard by the states, any time frame on when they could get, Minnesota was the one that was actually asking about the alternative path. They've submitted it to Federal Highway, and Federal Highway has not approved it, and they wouldn't commit to a time frame on that. So I know I'm not giving you any good news, but I just wanted to give you what I'm aware of.
Yeah, I was told by Larry that Ohio asking and receiving the NHI materials was the entire basis of the alternate training justificate, the actually putting it in writing what is required, because there's if we're going to have these agreements with states, we need to actually have something, have an actual written down plan. But right, so like I said, we had an agreement that expired in June of this year. And so, I have not taught our 2-week course since then because I, want to stay compliant. But, from June of 21 for 2 years, we did maybe 8 2-week courses, same thing in that time, and, got all of those grandfathered people, approved. But yeah, it's, the training I think is going to be an issue for all of us. I definitely, I just, like I said, just took over this position, but we have the monthly bridge inspection program manager meetings. I think those are going to be, going forward, very important as we transition through this SNBI, implementation period. So, all of you that are a part of that, or anyone who, wants to, kind of jump in on that and discuss SNBI. I feel like that's probably the basis of most of the discussion, going forward. So that will be a useful tool to kind of see, where we all are, but we're all going through the same type of stuff. So there's no need for, any one state to be out on an island. I feel like we should,
Work together.
keep the open communication and kind of share what's working and what's not working.
Any other questions?
You mean like the trainings?
Can you repeat the question?
Not to my knowledge. I think it's relatively small, but I don't really,
What was the question?
Do you have any consultants joining the bridge inspection call?
It's been program managers for the most
yeah,
part.
yeah.
At this point.
But-
There's a few that have come in, but I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how the inspection group, I don't think so.
It's mostly the program managers.
They've required that they don't have consultants, that they don't have the bed. It's for the states to
Inspection.
talk about what the states have to do.
Yeah, it's kind of a,
Yeah.
They have invited someone at certain times
yes.
to talk about a specific issue, but generally it's not.
That's correct.
That doesn't mean that there may not be an option for something else to help out with that. There may be a time that they want to, maybe there's another group, that they're always open to different things, so. Anything else?
I would say one thing, your inspections for the next 2 years are going to slow down even more, because collecting this stuff in the field and stuff and verifying is going to slow you down even more.
If I can ask a quick question. How easy is it for you to change the level of investment you have on consultant contracts to do inspections to supplement what you're doing in-house? How easy is it to ramp that up, have a justification, we've got these new requirements, can we spend more money on consultants?
I've been told by our consultant administration services that like our 2-year contracts are up. They're up for renewal, so we either have to go back to renewal or with like a renegotiations built right into the existing contract. So we're kind of at that point where we could just renegotiate and add that stuff into it. So we don't foresee an issue with that, although the contract numbers are probably going to go up a little bit for us.
We're in the same boat. I mean, the bulk data collection is going to be done by an independent consultant ahead of when the inspections are going to start. But in 26, when we start doing the collection of the SNBI, I'm sure all of our contracts would have been revised at that time to accommodate the additional fields and the time it's not time taken.
Pretty easy for me. Nobody says no to anything doing with bridge inspection. They're like, send it on through. So I stagger a lot of contracts. Every 2 years, I get a new slew of contracts. And then if I have to add money, that gets approved pretty easily.
All right, thank you.